we live in a culture where it's easy to make fun of emotions. But I think that when you get people into couples therapy and you can actually help them very much experience emotional connection with a therapist and then with their partner, that is transformative.
Welcome to Separate Bathrooms. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we record our podcast, the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present. Welcome to Separate Bathrooms, part 2 of our interview with Kerrie and Adrian Lumbewe. I'm Daddo.
I'm Daddo, and let's just jump right back into part 2. If you haven't already listened to part 1, go back and have a listen because we're continuing on.
Question for you, Al. Did you get, because Ali brought in the State of the Union thing to us, but I'm not sure if you actually pitched it like that. You just said we should actually sit down at a certain time, so it was a weekend thing, and we'll chat about where we're at. Was that from the Gottman Institute?
Yeah. I didn't know it was called the State of the Union. I didn't actually
Right. It's a
know
very
that.
American thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
The president going to be here?
I think it was because we just kept it to 3 questions. It's like, what went really well this week with you and I? What do you, and it was just the way it was phrased. It wasn't like, when were you a dickhead this week? It was
A lot. A lot.
It's like we changed it to that. We changed it. I was
born a dickhead.
Yeah, honey. It was what wasn't working, and and then we finished with what do you want more of? What more do you want? So, and I really liked that finishing with that because then it still finished on a positive thing. So. Yeah.
And I think the other thing that is added in the State of the Union that's really important and grossly underestimated how important this is sharing fondness and admiration and appreciation.
Yes.
So,
yes.
actually, and this is one of the big things that we have to teach people, is it's not enough to think nice thoughts about your partner. We are all inherently actually quite insecure. So if I'm not hearing from you that you approve of me, that you like me, that you appreciate me, that you value me, I start to doubt whether or not those things are true. And so that's something we do a lot of when we're dating. We tell each other what we like about each other a lot. But that's one of the things that masters do, and we encourage that in the State of the Union as well. Like, started off with not only what did we do well as a couple, but hey, I've been looking at you and here's a situation. I saw you get down and play with our little daughter when she fell over and hurt her knee, and I just looked at how comforted she was by your beautiful hug, and I'm so glad that you're her dad. Like, it's those sorts of things that you actually have to say out loud to people because that really, really strengthens a relationship.
Yeah.
What do you say to cynics? You must come up against people in therapy who've come in, like the husband or the partner's been dragged in by the other person, and they're just going, I just don't, that's not necessary. Why do I have to say that? Why, and are they like the hard edge, the hard shell people, and then you bust through them and then they're 45 minutes, they're crumbled. But how do you deal with those cynics? What do you do? Because I sometimes feel that myself. In fact, as we're talking, I'm going, I don't want to have a State of the Union thing. I don't want to have to. I can think of half my golf buddies up there on the hill would just be like, dude, just relax, go and have a beer.
Yeah.
So how do you crack that egg?
Really good question, and we do come up against that. It's not just males, right? It's females as well. But it comes. Look, I think it comes down to the concept of what we call meta emotions. Meta emotions, and really it just means that how well how much the person or the individual and the relationship, how much does it place on talking about how we feel to each other? It's the importance that we place on how much or how we're talking about how we feel about each other, or talking about how we feel to each other. Sorry, I should say. And a lot of us have what we call low meta emotions, meaning that we don't place importance on talking about how we feel because of the way going back to what we talked about, our attachment styles, about the way we were taught about or not taught about our emotions. So some of us are, and a lot of your listeners will probably relate to this, that we weren't raised to acknowledge that emotions are important. We weren't nurtured in our emotions. Some of us might have even been told that our emotions are wrong. We shouldn't have them, and we shouldn't feel that. We should feel something else. Or no, that's not okay. You're a big boy or girl. You shouldn't cry. All that sort of stuff. I mean, this is quite common in people. And so when we grow, into adults and we have adult relationships, we carry that with us, and we've never been able to understand what our emotions actually are. And so therefore we're uncomfortable with talking about emotions, especially our negative emotions. So we shut them down, right? And then we sort of say, well, why do I have to say that? Why can't we all just get along? Why can't we just, no, that's okay. Don't worry, you're too sensitive. It's all right. There's no problem here. But it comes down to how comfortable do we feel in ourselves about talking about emotions. And if we assess, an individual or a couple that are low in meta emotions, we do a lot of work to teach them how to talk about emotions and teach them about the importance of feelings. And when you actually are able to express your vulnerable feelings to each other, your vulnerable emotional needs to each other, and the other person actually hears that and validates that and says, that makes a lot of sense, and I want that for you, then that teaches them and reinforces for them that's okay to have emotions. It's okay to tell my partner, it's safe to tell my partner that I feel this, even if it's a negative emotion. So but that's
quite an adult. It's quite an adult thing, though, isn't it, Adrian? Because if I know, for me and my family, we were not brought up to be speaking emotions, and I know my mum and dad have railed against me in the last 25, 30 years. God, Cam, you talk too much, or you get too emotional or deep, or just that sort of stuff. So it's not really supported, yet it is supported when the byproduct of it comes out, and it's been a better result. Though I find, that's been my training, that's almost like a default thing. So if I'm not in the adult mind, in a grown-up Cam version of me, if I'm back, I can be, I saw an image of, actually sent it to someone today, of a grown man sucking on a dummy, and it's like this, this childish way of being. If I feel like that, I can easily drift back into that attitude of, we don't need to talk. I'd rather not. I'd rather not. So that's what I mean. It takes a conscious mind and an adult intention to say, I know most of the time I want to have a better relationship. I want to be seen. I want to have my needs met. So there's this constant push me, pull you. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of our listeners, I would hope. I don't think I'm an island here, but I think a lot of people would relate to that. Is that your experience too?
Absolutely. I think that we just really grossly underestimate how important our emotional well-being is. And we live in a culture, I think, where it's easy to make fun of emotions. Like, I think that's a huge part of it as well. But I think that when you get people into couples therapy and you can actually help them very much experience emotional connection with a therapist and then with their partner, that is transformative. Like, it is, I call it magic. Like, I'm on a high after sessions when I have a session of what we call an engaged emotional encounter, where I talk about two hearts meeting. And often it's not even a lot of words that need to be said in those moments, but it's like the look in someone's eyes when they can look into their partner's eyes and actually see and feel their pain. And when we receive that sort of care, like, we're seen on a very deep level, we're known on a very deep level, and our pain and hurt makes sense to another person. There is nothing like that. The toughest man will crumble under that. The hardest woman will crumble under that, and not crumble in a bad way, but in a way of like, this is what I'm longing for. This is what all human beings are longing for, like deep emotional connection, truly being seen, known and cared for by another human being.
Yeah.
And that transforms people. And then you see people going, all right, what's the name of that book you're telling me about? How can we do this? What courses can we come to? And they literally turn a corner, complete corner. It's just, it's magic. I can't explain it. I love it.
And I just see that working across the board, you know, as a parent to the child, as your girlfriend, you know, as your sisters or wherever you're having relationship. As you said, everyone wants to be seen and heard, as particularly in their vulnerable emotions. And working with kids like I do, I've got there's one girl in my class particularly who I work with, and she's special needs. But at the same time, she's so special because she will look at me and she'll go, I am feeling really angry right now and it is building in my body and I've got to scream. It's like, all right, we're going outside to scream. And I'm like, imagine if we could all say things like that. So good. So
That's
good.
beautiful.
I know, right? She's been taught either by her mum or her therapist, God love her.
Yeah.
But I just love that. I'm like, wow, if we could all just be that expressive from such a young age, you know, we'd be a lot more connected than probably, you know, a lot of us are not. But yeah, I love it.
It's the innocence, you know, of children, isn't it? You know,
Yes.
or we're corrupted by the world, you know, or the adult world type of thing, you know. But I just want to sort of go back to what you said, Cam, before about that fear. You know, you were mentioning that fear, and because of that fear and the hurts from childhood, right, we build this shell around us, right, and it's and that shell tells us not to be vulnerable, right, because every time I was vulnerable as a child, I was not given love. In fact, love was taken away from me, or I was punished for that, or I was abused, things like that, right? And so what happens is that shell stays with us. And when we get those types of people who've been so hurt in therapy, no way they're going to just, or at a whim, just say, oh, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable now, right? To a complete stranger, you know, in the worst time of my life, in my relationship. So, but what couples therapy is about, it's about showing that hurt individual that their partner is their source of safety and their source of comfort, right? And it might not be that way right at the start of therapy. They might have hurt each other so much and there's so much distrust and betrayal there. But our job as therapists is to be able to create that, what, you know, we would call secure attachment, right, between the two individuals. And once we reach secure attachment, then each party feels able to be vulnerable with each other, aren't they? You know, and then meta emotions can build, and then they can emotionally reconnect, and that's where it just blossoms. So it is coming right back to that fear stuff of childhood, and undoing that, I guess, within the therapeutic situation.
And it might, if I can just add, because I think this would be something really helpful for your listeners to understand, is that the fear is really profound. Like, it's on a visceral level. Like, it's like a phobia, you know, like some people are just so distressed or uncomfortable with any feelings of vulnerability that they can actually become completely mute, like unable to speak when they get overwhelmed with emotion. And that obviously for the person that's trying to connect with them is really challenging. But we also really have to understand that the person who hasn't been really guided on how to get in touch with their emotions, like, they're in a lot of distress when they're shut down. They're very, very overwhelmed and they're very uncomfortable. And if you can think of your worst fear, like mine would be walking to the edge of a cliff, and just jumping off. Like, that's what we're asking people to do when we're asking them to talk about their emotions. And we don't give that enough credit, how hard that is.
If you're in a relationship with someone who, okay, you recognize this person is completely shut down to having a vulnerable conversation about their feelings because, okay, now I understand it's about fear. What would I do then? How do I support that person to have a conversation about their feelings?
Well, you're asking the right person, because I'm married to the guy.
Is that right? Is that something you guys go through?
No, look, Yes, your friendly neighborhood psychologists also have problems.
Of course, you're human.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And look, we all struggle, right?
Yeah.
And no, I'm not comfortable with talking about emotions in my personal life. I'm great at my therapy stuff because it's other people's emotions, right? I can guide them through that.
Yeah.
But no, just to feel my own, that's difficult for me. And through all the stuff that we've learned, as professionals, but also growing in our emotional connection as a married couple. And Kerrie's a natural at this stuff, right? She really is, and she lives and breathes this stuff. I've learned a lot from her, personally, and she's provided me with a secure base, emotionally, so that when emotions come up for me, especially those difficult, painful emotions and negative emotions, when I start to feel that, my natural instinct is to withdraw into myself.
Yeah.
And that's because of my stuff, my baggage that I'm carrying from childhood and everything like that. But what has helped me is that being married to Kerrie, and she loves to talk about her own emotions in a very articulate way. She will encourage me to do that, but she does it gently. And with that gentleness comes this realization that, okay, well, here's someone here who's willing to see me, hear me, and understand me without judgment, right? Without any sort of repercussions for feeling the way I feel, even if it's a negative emotion. And that provides me with a secure base to go, okay, so emotions are actually okay, and they're not these things I should hide away and be ashamed of. They are things that are naturally occurring within me and are going to be encouraged by the one that I love and the one who loves me, and therefore I'm more willing to. I feel empowered enough to be able to be open about those, and to receive validation and compassion and unconditional love. And that's how that works. And that's what brings that type of person with difficulties with emotions and difficulties with meta emotions to talk freely and openly, only with people that you trust, though. You feel secure.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, Adrian, with people you trust, because some of us tend to overshare with people that and you kind of go, why are they telling me this? They don't know me from Adam. I also have that with my charity, my men's team, and we have our team, and we'll be, and this has been the tricky thing, is to get men to come and share what's going on, share their life in that way. But I always encourage guys, just do as much as you're comfortable with, and it's going to take a little time to learn to trust this group. They may be friends, but they also may be strangers. But I think it's really important to hold in, what is sacred to you until you have that trust and in yourself, and that it's reflected with the people that you're sharing it with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Coming back to what you were saying, Ali, about like what do you do if you've got a partner who withdraws a lot? I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we actually see as a problem in couples therapy, is something that is termed the distance of pursuer dynamic. So that's a dynamic where we've got one party, and in our relationship that would be me, who's in pursuit of, let's sit down, let's talk about our feelings, let's talk about this issue, let's try and sort this out. And then we've got one person who is the distancer or with the withdrawer. So any sign of conflict, they just retreat and withdraw. And so the important thing is not to get caught up in the distance of pursuer dynamic, because the more the pursuer pursues, the more the distancer distances. And the more the distancer distances, the more it initiates or promotes the pursuer to get in pursuit. So we've just got to recognize that that's the dynamic that might be happening in our relationship. Adrian was very kind with some of the things that he has said about me, and I hope that most of it's true, but we've definitely had our distance or pursuer dynamic. There's, really valid reasons why Adrian withdraws and shuts down in conflict that make a lot of sense to me, but likewise there's very valid reasons from my early life why I pursue conflict and why I don't want to leave things undone. And I think that's a very, very important thing for people to understand, is that there's a reason why. There's a reason behind it. And the most beautiful thing that I see really come about that when we unpack the distance of pursuer dynamic is the pursuer is actually trying to restore connection. And the distancer is actually trying to preserve the connection that's there without making it get any worse.
Yeah, right.
So it's so beautiful when people actually can see we're after the same thing. We're just trying to do it in a different way. That's a really helpful thing for people to understand. Try not to get caught up in the dynamic that exists there, and remember that you're trying to go for the same goal, which is that connection.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It is cool.
I've never heard that described like that.
No,
that's gorgeous.
And I've never. So just as a on a work level, do you use those terms like distancer, pursuer, dynamic with your clients? Do you use that? Does that, and that doesn't push them away, going, oh, mate, this is too bloody weird.
By the time you're introducing those terms, you've got a pretty good rapport with them.
Okay.
And the process in which we take them through is very gentle. And it's not blaming. You don't point fingers at anyone.
That's important.
It's very it's confrontational in the sense that we do have to elicit emotions out of people and help them through those, but it's non-confrontational so far as it's non-blaming. So when we reach that time where we're talking about those types of terms, say for example, they already know what that means. They already know the background to all that. We've developed a very good rapport and whatnot. So they're usually very, very receptive to that, and it's
quite validating for them. I think that's really, so many people are like, oh, so this is a thing? I'm like, yep, it's a thing. Like,
right.
We know the thing pretty well.
The way I understand it now is exactly what I was sort of referring to with my mum and dad, before, just going, here's me pursuing an emotional connection and them distancing, going, we want to keep our connection, so don't rattle the cage.
Just nice. We don't want to have problems.
Okay.
And what I was just going to say too, just as you were speaking, is that what I also love about the work that you both do and the therapy work is that you actually don't necessarily need to have the partners in there together. You can actually change the relationship just by one person. And I think that's sometimes what people forget, that they go, oh, I can't get my partner to come with me to relationship therapy. And while it may fast track it and be better, just you can actually make a difference in the relationship. Absolutely. Once you discover the needs of yourself and perhaps the needs of your partner through doing the work with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we've got two businesses, so Motivating Minds, we do a lot of individual therapy, and then Motivating Marriages, which is our sister company that grew out of Motivating Minds, is where we do all our couple and parenting work. And so definitely if people are aware that they're struggling interpersonally, so with relationships, be it with their partner, their children, colleagues, friendships, they can definitely see an individual psychologist and do some phenomenal work and learning about themselves and relationships and develop the skills they need to become more interpersonally effective in their relationship.
Yeah, great. Oh, we could talk forever. This is so interesting, but we do need to get to the shower, honey.
You ready for the shower, you two?
So we do something called a 2-minute shower, and this is where we just ask you a series of questions, and so keep your answers short, one word, but if you need a few more words, we allow that as well. So we will ask the same question to both of you.
Who's funnier?
Oh, that's a hard one. We both think we're funny.
We're both equally funny.
It's a tie.
Okay, we're having a bit of a longer shower. How important is humour in a relationship?
Massively important.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Agreed. What is your partner's basic philosophy in life?
Kerrie's is to pretty much love everyone, forgive people, and see people for who they are, not just the good, but also the not so great as well, and to be accepting. It sums you up, I think.
Yeah. Adrian's, I think, would be, if you're going to do something, do it right and do it well. Yeah.
I agree with that.
What do you miss when you're not together?
Kerrie's a very big presence, but you wouldn't know that outside of the home, but she's really big presence in our marriage. And when she's not there, it's just I just miss you. She's just not there, and I just miss a lot about her actually. Yeah.
I probably miss the comfort and safety of Adrian. He's very stable and very comfortable and safe. The world feels safe with him.
Nice. What the world needs more of is
people really seeing and knowing one another on a deep empathic level.
You took my answer. That's pretty much the same as me. Yeah, people need to be able.
Can I just ask another question? Just as on that, what part does technology and do you see a part for phones and things like that in that getting to know each other really well?
It's definitely a distraction.
It's a huge distraction.
And in one of the workshops we run, the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, it actually has a section on there to help couples to ward against that because it is a big problem.
Is that chapter called Put Your Bloody Phone Down?
It could be. And I think it creates such a false illusion. I think that's my heartache when it comes to anything social media. Like there's just such a false illusion. Even the stories you hear of people's heartaches usually has like this filter around it, whereas, at the end of the day, we're all just quite vulnerable and messy and we've got heartache, we've got pain, and it'd be nice to just be real about that.
There's a song in that. I'm going to write that down. Heartache is pain.
I'll ask. Do you want to ask the last question?
You can ask it.
Okay, last question. Describe each other in one word.
Oh, I think I need more.
You can take more. It's okay.
Yeah. Tenacious is one that comes to mind. Really extremely. Kerrie will just go for it. So if she wants something, she'll just go for it. There's no stopping it.
One word. It has to be 2. Beautiful heart.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love it.
We can push those together.
Love that. Thank you so much, Adrian and Kerrie, for your time. That was so interesting, and you've clearly got a lot of knowledge, and clearly the kindness of who you both are comes shining through in the way you talk about your clients and the work that you do. So thank you so much for this chat.
Thanks.
Pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Thank you both.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That was fantastic.
It sounded like you had a lot of personal things sort of get.
Well, I'm back on the therapy train.
Yeah.
So I'm actually diving into some things, and so
okay, that's where some of those questions were coming from, right?
Yeah, well, they're just things have sort of just bit up for me in that way, and so it was just lovely to speak. And one of the things that's been I guess pointed out to me is after doing therapy for many years is how much I hide behind labels. And
okay, that makes sense why you were asking those questions. Yeah,
and it's like, well, what does that actually mean? I'm like, oh, well, this and this, and the therapist is like, yeah, but that seems like a bit of gobbledygook, and I'm like, oh shit.
Right.
So it's really been great for me to get to the true kernel of what it is that I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, about fear. Going, wow, I still live with a whole lot of fear. So I'm unraveling that for myself. So but when she talked, when they mentioned the distance pursuer dynamic, I'm like, oh God, no, I don't need another label to describe something.
Right.
Though what they were actually describing was quite brilliant.
Yeah.
In that, chasing someone's running away from someone who's trying to actually pursue depth. And I think we can have a long chat about this afterwards. Because I reckon we're prime candidates in our own way for it, which
absolutely.
Is just great. I don't mind opening up that can of worms with you, because at the end of the day, what I do know from our work together and our therapy and our chats, that we always are way closer.
Oh yeah.
As a result,
oh,
so it's worth it
Yeah.
It's worth it, the pain of going, oh, do we have to talk about this? Yes, we do.
Yeah, it's always
It's
better
worth it.
afterwards. And I love the thing, just those small things that they said about, what difference can we make in our relationships now? And that was small things often.
Yeah.
6-second kiss.
Yeah. Which we did the other day.
Yes, I know.
And we haven't spoken about it.
This is my Gottman
Honey,
thing.
It was so sweet. And I loved it.
And
I'm like, who are you?
And functional conflict as well. All of those. I know that's another label, but they did explain it. No, they explained it really well.
Okay,
they
I have to go back in
really
the chat.
well. Just the gentleness of understanding conflict and where it comes from. And so to me, that was like, don't call names. You know what I mean? Like, it was just being able to have conflict, but make it functional, so you don't end up more torn apart than where you started. So that's the way I took it, though. There was just a simplicity to how they were talking about relationships and therapy, and it was just really beautiful.
I agree. And the fact that they said that humour is a big part of it, and I know I often will lead into a joke to not feel the profundity or vulnerability, what's actually going on, though humour is a good thing.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a power leak.
Yeah. Or used to push away.
Correct.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
What a great way to start the year.
Yes.
For those of us desiring relationship, for those of us dealing with the end of a relationship. What great information to have.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year when you're setting goals or
if you're single or where can you use it with your person at work or your best friend or
it doesn't need to be a lover.
So it fits in everywhere.
I hope you enjoyed it, listener. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and because I certainly did, got a lot out of it. I think there'll be a re-listen and more 6-second kisses, more small things often, and more State of the Union speeches or not speeches, conversations.
That's right. Barack Obama, here we come.
Yeah. Okay. So till next time on Separate Bathrooms, please be kind to each other and be safe.
Thanks for listening.